This documentary is about an incredible moment in time in 1972 in Toronto, Canada, where they did a production of the musical Godspell. Godspell had opened in New York City in 1971. It was a big hit, sort of hippy-dippy musical about the life of Jesus. And it was so popular, they did it all over the world. And in Toronto, a band of total unknowns, for many of them, it was their first professional job, did a show that was an instant hit and also launched an incredible number of ridiculously great careers, and in some ways was the inciting incident for the comedy revolution of the last 50 years. It predated SCTV. It predated Saturday Night Live. Many in the cast went on to those two branches of the great comedy tree. And the film is about trying to capture that moment in time and bring it forward and make you feel like you are there.
It was at the auditions when we were all in the finals. I looked at all the people had auditioned, and but it was that the night of the party, the night we all knew we were doing it, and it was a party, a gathering, and Howie Sponseller, who was the New York director, who was also a Godspeller, and he was directing the Toronto production, and we were all in this room, and I remember very clearly, and I have a terrible memory, but I do remember the feeling that I was surrounded by exceptionally talented people. I was amazed at, I knew it then, and it never wavered. And I wasn't surprised when I'm surprised that this happened. This is kind of, talk about the literal icing on the cake. This moment in time for all of us who are still living is just an extraordinary affirmation.
Well, I think I didn't even realize how amazing it was because I was actually a student at Ryerson at that point in their first theater department. We were supposed to be having a party amongst the kids on that weekend, and I was going to this audition for Experience because I knew I would have to do that in the future. So I went to the audition, and I really thought I was going to be there, 3 minutes, and I would go, and I was there all day, and God, I got the job. And I still, to this day, look back and I think, how did that happen? I mean, not only am I Latvian, but I grew up in Kansas, and I'm not a gorgeous girl, and I couldn't even get into the drama club at my high school. So, this is something that maybe people can take away. We were talking about talent, and I was wondering what it was that you would have seen as talent from, not just because people were technically able to sing, but I think also what makes the group, talent is heart, talent is generosity, and an ability to communicate. And every single person has that in our family, including you, darling. I'd love to see you in a clown costume.
Say that now.
I'm reminded about that, Eugene, as you know, many of us have remained best friends over all these years. Valda, of course, living across the ocean. Yeah, we're glad, but we're almost back in touch with her now. Very glad to be.
Yes, you won't get away from
But
me.
otherwise, Eugene was saying not too long ago, as we were talking about this guy, maybe he had just done his interview. He said, well, Paul, you must have, Marty and I celebrated that night after we got those roles. You must have done the same thing. I said, not really, because I wasn't auditioning for anything. I was there accompanying two different people. One was Avril, who got the role. I had just met her on a tour, as it says in the movie, tour of missile bases in northern Quebec. And she said, will you accompany me? I'm auditioning for this New York show. And the other one was a girlfriend that I was dating at the time. Her name, Virginia Ronchetti, became an actress of some note in town. I played for both of them. And after the second one, Stephen Schwartz, the great composer of Wicked, now, of course, putting him at the absolute top of the list of composers, Broadway composers and such. But this was his first show that he had gotten made. And he said, I want to talk to that piano player. He heard me play, Avril had sung a song from the show. And I said, what is it? And first he said, would you play for the rest of the auditions? Sure, and which I did. So I ended up playing for everybody. What did you sing, Valda?
I'm leaving on a jet plane.
I bet I played it for you at the end. Oh, my bags are packed. I happen to know We were talking about the other day, Valda can even sight read better than I can. I still can't sight read, but I knew all the songs. You know, I played by ear. Leaving on a Jet Plane, a lot of people sang Heart of Gold by Neil Young. At the end of the day, having played for everybody, he spoke to me one more time, Stephen Schwartz, and said, "Can you get a band together and conduct the show?" Well, I mean, I was floored. Talk about, I had never conducted a railway car or anything else. It really was a rock musical with a rock band. And in a lot of rock bands, the drummer is really the de facto conductor. Everybody will often turn to the drummer and watch him. When his hand comes bang at you, you can hit that. And that's the way it was in Godspell. The drummer really conducted the show. So that kind of I got to learn how to conduct gradually. Anyway, as I told Eugene, I was just blown. I came home and said, "What just happened?" And that wasn't even a cool expression yet, but it sure applied to me. I couldn't believe it.
It's incredible because when you think about it, it's like all these comic actors on March 25th, 1972, it happens for them. And I was talking to somebody about it, and they said, yeah, but it was also Stephen Schwartz identifying Paul musically. So it's like, forgive me, but July 6, 1957, Paul meets, not you, Paul, but Paul meets John at, St. John's Fete in England.
So Stephen then, after he saw the show with me in it, he said, "I'm doing a movie. I'm going to bring you to New York to play on the movie soundtrack." Again, I had never done anything like that. My first time in New York, first time really in a recording studio. And I'm playing, and the next thing I know, it's Stephen Schwartz and me on two dual pianos, and Victor on the screen playing the piano, and us, Stephen had written what sound he would be making, us dubbing it in. I made Stephen play with me because the thing he wrote was I couldn't play it. It was so hard. I said, "Help me out with it. Play it with, you play the left hand, I'll play the right hand." And then he said, at the end of that day, when you're finished in Toronto, I want you to move to New York and work for me here. And that's what I ended up doing in 74.
Was so beloved, but she also was someone who loved the audience. And I remember we did a show at the Bayview Playhouse, which was signed. Do you remember that? And Gilda wanted to learn to do Swath of Sinners signing, but it's really fast. And so she started to do it and she couldn't, and she stopped, and the audience was laughing and she was laughing. And it was the most dear moment. She could turn anything into just pure magic. It's a pity she was not happier as a person, because she was an angel.
I'm in a state of constantly ready to tear up. This is obviously unexpected, but as soon as this documentary started taking shape, I thought, this really is an interesting story. I mean, I always felt that, but and people talked about it as, oh yeah, and all those people were in the show, but the idea that it was going to be made into a film was way beyond anybody's conception and idea. And thank you to Nick and the producers, there were many of last night, Judd Apatow being one of them, and several people that I'd never met. It's really to sit in an audience in a theater and watch the response, and the the amazing part is there's nothing really filmed from that original production. It's all talking heads and also just clips of things and cartoon things. And Nick put this together in a brilliant way, and it's so compelling, so moving, and everybody went crazy after the when it finished.
When Marty first told me, oh, I recorded it one night, and also I took my tape recorder to cast parties, I was like, wait, really? And then he sent the recordings to me, and I the first time I listened to the cast party, I was like, oh my God. Like, I hear Gilda saying, crisp is an unused word. And you're just like, it's just like, oh my God, I'm there. They're my friends. And so to be able to sort of try and turn that into a film was just so much fun.